This is the Sports Psychology Hour with Dr. Andrew Jacobs on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
And what I've done is help athletes be the best they can be. We work on giving you that winning edge, that mental edge that will help you realize your potential.
Dr. Jacobs has been in practice for over 30 years as a sports psychologist.
I'm a basketball referee. This mother out of nowhere says, "Trip him!"
Right now is your chance to call Dr. Jacobs for free help with any sports-related problem.
The coach was not afraid, the school was not afraid to back up the rules.
And this show is about you. It's about having fun, working hard, building self-confidence, having the right attitude, being a good teammate, being a good parent, and being a good coach.
Now, here's the sports psychologist, Dr. Andrew Jacobs.
Good morning, Kansas City. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and welcome to our show here in Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm here every Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m., and I look forward to doing this show with you each and every Sunday morning. As we talk about the mental side of sports on this show, we're also on 810WHBTV.com, and you can watch as well as listen to me live with my producers, Jed Marshall and Jim Bly, both in studio this morning. And we are going to be talking about the mental side of sports on this show today, as we do each and every Sunday morning. And this show is about you. It's about our listeners. It's about our callers. And the goal of this show is to take your calls and get into discussions with you about the mental side of sports. And I've been in practice for 33 years, been on the radio for 23, the last 13 now here at Sports Radio 10 WHB. Worked with the Olympic team, with professional teams, with collegiate teams, worked with pretty much every level of sports. And the goal of this show is to work with you and help you reach your potential, do the best you can. And we take your calls and get into discussions with you every Sunday morning on this show, and look forward to doing it. And you know, this past week, it's been an interesting week. As always in sports, there's always so much stuff that comes up. And what happened to me this week that really struck me was the hirings of Bobby Petrino at the University of Louisville as their head football coach, Mark Mangino being hired at Iowa State, rehired in football as the offensive coordinator, Fran McCaffrey, the Iowa basketball coach, going ballistic during a game, getting a double technical, being kicked out of the game, getting fined $10,000 and suspended for a game. And this is a man who's coached for years. And what's interesting, as I listened to all three of these men talk, I was thinking, what kind of a role model are these people? Now McCaffrey's been a successful coach. He's been around for a while, 17 years. He's had a history of success, and I don't know when he's ever had a double technical before, but he went ballistic in a game at Wisconsin the other day, I believe it was last Sunday, and got kicked out of the game. Went after the refs. Now, let's face it, in sports, your emotions are going to take over. They're going to catch up with you sometimes. And when they do, you have to deal with that, and hopefully that won't happen with him. And, you know, coaches are as human as anybody else. They make mistakes, they screw up because they're human beings. And the key thing is, do they come back and apologize and come back and show that they were wrong and admit to their fellow coaches, their teammates, the fans, they made a mistake and go on. And they should, and most of them do. But what I don't get is the University of Louisville. Their head coach goes to Texas. Charlie Strong goes to Texas, become the head football coach. And now they rehire Bobby Petrino, who was there years before. Now, let's face it, Bobby Petrino has an excellent football mind. He's been very successful as a coach. But as a human being, this guy is a liar. And it's all over the internet. I was looking here before the show. All the lies he's had. You know, he was fired at Arkansas. If you recall, a couple years ago, he was on a motorcycle, Arkansas's head football coach. And all of a sudden, he's had this accident. He's wearing a neck brace. And he makes up these lies about what happened. And the next thing you find out, well, he was on the motorcycle with a grad student who was, quote unquote, his mistress. She was engaged to somebody. He's married. Well, he ends up getting fired. Then he gets hired at Western Kentucky to be their head football coach. And now Louisville's rehired him where he was previous, when he went to the Atlanta Falcons. And he keeps saying, I'm not leaving, I'm not going, and then he goes somewhere else. My question is, if I'm a parent and I have a son who's being considered to play football at the University of Louisville, which has been a very successful football program under Charlie Strong the last few years, and I've got Teddy Bridgewater, their quarterback, who's going to be drafted this year in the NFL. They were undefeated till they lost to Central Florida earlier in the year. if you're a mom or a dad, and you find out Bobby Petrino is now going to be the head coach of that school, and you've grown up with a value system in your family, are you going to want your son to play for this man who has admittedly lied numerous times? I'm not sure you would. So the question comes up today, which I thought would be a good topic for discussion, is, are coaches role models? Should they really be role models? And in the role that they're at, guiding young men and women, should their personal lives be under scrutiny? Should the things they do personally be in the public eye? Well, they're going to be, whether they want to be or not. Today, in sports, we have an issue with the internet, with social media, with the fact that everybody's personal lives are going to be exposed. And so consequently, coaches' personal lives are going to be exposed. If you're a coach at a college, a major university, and you are leading young men and women, you really need to dot your I's and cross your T's. You need to know what you're doing. You need to have things under control. If your personal life is a shambles, it's going to catch up with you. Jim, you want to make some comments?
Yeah, I mean, you take Tiger Woods and his big mess up. He did pay the price. I mean, I was really surprised some of the sponsors pulled out on him. And that doesn't happen a lot with superstars in the world of sports. And so, yeah, I mean, you're starting to see, I think, a change in how businesses handle their advertising dollars with people that do screw up.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the University of Louisville with their football program, with a guy who's got a laundry list of lies following him, because I think there will be a lot of kids who won't go to school there. Now, if I'm another coach and I'm recruiting a young man,
Use it.
I mean, why would you not talk about the fact that you want to go to a school like that and be led by a man like that?
Right.
You know, Mark Mangino's been out of football for 3 years. He's been supposedly working on himself, and hopefully for his good, he has. Now, when he was at KU, best football coach they've had in years and years and years, did a great job, but he was accused of berating players, of being physically violent with players, and losing his temper with players, being verbally abusive as well as physically abusive. The interesting thing about Mark Mangino is he never really admitted that he did any of these things.
Right.
And so what's going to be interesting is now, as he's coaching at Iowa State, how will he conduct himself? He's had time to reflect and work on himself, which hopefully he has, and hopefully something like that won't happen again. He's obviously a very good football coach. He understands football very well. But you know, how will these young men take on him? So here's our question for today. Should coaches be role models? Is your coach a role model, and why? I'd like to hear from you. If you're an athlete and you have a coach you'd like to talk about who's really guided you and helped you along the way, I'd like to hear from you about why. What did that coach do for you to help you become a better person? If you've had a coach who has not been a very good role model, who has behaved inappropriately, have done some things that, you know, you found out about that really bothered you, how have you handled that situation? Our phone number, as always, is 913-381-0810. 913-381-0810. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm here every Sunday morning on Sports Radio 810 WHB. And this show is for you, our callers, our listeners. And I'd like to hear from you. If you've had a coach who helped guide you and direct you and gave you showed you good examples of how to conduct your life, I'd like to hear from you. If you're a parent, and we always hear from parents on this show, if you're a parent, I'd like to hear from you about a coach who coached your son or daughter and some things you saw that really helped your kids become more proficient at their sport, become better people, become a better person, individual, and how that worked. Our phone number, once again, is 913-381-0810. And if you are a parent and have a young son or daughter and found out that Bobby Petrino was going to be coaching their team, the team you're thinking about going to, your son or daughter's thinking about going to as a collegiate athlete, and you found out Bobby Petrino is going to be the head coach, how would you feel about that? Once again, 913-381-0810. I've played sports my whole life, and I will, since we're talking about role models, I'll talk about the tennis professional I learned tennis from. His name's John Bragan. I grew up at playing tennis at Kansas City Racket Club. And John Bragan was a role model for me, taught me tennis. But part of the lessons that I learned, I know growing up playing tennis, John taught a lot about life, about people, about dealing with things. And I know he does listen to this show once in a while. So, John, if you're listening, I'd love to hear from you and have you call in. Once again, our number is 913-381-1010. He taught many, many young tennis players here in the Kansas City area, and I know I still look up to him and have looked up to him for years for guidance and support and things, and somebody who's always been there for me. And to me, that's, I think, we developed these relationships with coaches. Our first TV show a few weeks ago, I had Pete Malone on, the head coach of the Kansas City Blazers, for years and years and years. I worked with Pete for 27 years, and he was, as a coach, he guided many, many athletes to become Olympians, to get college scholarships, to become very successful. I know a lot of athletes have looked up to him. I'm working with a young lady who's in her late 30s. She's a college professor, used to swim for the Blazers, and we do some work on the phone, and she talks to me all the time about the lessons she learned with the Blazers and the things that Pete taught her. So I know that coaches do have a big impact on athletes, positively or negatively. So I'd like to hear from you. If you are an athlete, how has your coach helped you? Is your coach a role model, and should they be a role model? Once again, our number is 913-381-1010. I'd like to hear from you. Excuse me. If you are a parent and your son or daughter is playing sports, how has the coach who's coaching them helped guide them and support them? Should the coach be seen as a role model? And who should the role models really be? To me, it should be parents. It should start with your parents. It should start with your family. It should start with things at home. Teachers, coaches, leaders are role models. But what do they display? You know, the first thing I think, first quality of a tremendous role model is honesty, trust, and respect. Those qualities combined. And I think when you have a coach who is going to be coaches are guides, they're mentors, they're going to direct you in which direction you should go. But when their life is going the wrong way, how can you possibly, look at them and listen to the things they say to you? So that's where I think when you have a coach like Bobby Petrino becoming the head coach at the University of Louisville, running their football program, it's going to be difficult, I think, for a lot of those players. It'd be very interesting to see how many players stay at Louisville and how many players drop off of the scholarships that they had committed to because of a guy like that being a coach. Let's face it, he understands X's and O's, but as an individual, he has a history of lying to everywhere he's been. So what does that say to you? All right, let's get some calls in here. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs here every Sunday morning from 7, 8 a.m., and I'd like to hear from you. If you're a parent and your son or daughter's playing sports, how much background do you check on their coaches? Do you really look at their coaches? Coaches now, we see about having background checks. We see the importance of background checks for coaches, especially at the youth sport level. We've seen so many examples, unfortunately, of abuse by youth sport coaches. We're seeing it all the time. And should background checks be an appropriate thing that should be become mandatory for youth sport coaches? I think they probably should be today. It's unfortunate, but they should be. And as a parent, what are you looking for in a coach when they're guiding your kids? All right, let's get some calls in here. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Here's our phone number. It's 913-381-1010. 913-381-1010. If you're a parent, I'd like to hear from you about the role your son or daughter's coach should play in their life. Should they be a role model? If you are an athlete now or have played sports, what role did your coach play for you? How did they help better you? Or did they do things that made things worse? Did they do some things that were not good examples of being a role model? And did you learn from that? Or were they positive role models for you? And if you are a coach, and I know a lot of coaches listen to this show, I'd like to hear from you as well. Do you think you should be a role model? Our phone number is 913-381-1010, 913-381-1010. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. We're in the Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak. It's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher. It's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result? The most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up and, well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, for the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs.
For audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV at pvskc.com. pvskc.com.
When you're thinking about New Orleans, why not let jazz cook for you?
Laissez les bon temps rouler. Hey folks, Papa Vic here to talk about what's new at your favorite restaurant, Jazz, a Louisiana Kitchen. The economy got you down? You don't need a fat wall to come to Jazz, I guarantee. Don't forget, All-American Tuesdays, where the best dish in KC is half price. Looking for live entertainment? Nobody in town plays more live music than Jazz. Check out our website, jazzkitchen.com, for daily band listings. Both locations, the original on 39th and State Line, and at the Legends in Village West. Jazz, where there's always a party every night.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are, but we do know how to have a good time talking sports. And having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
Good morning, everyone. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and we're on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm here every Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m., and we're talking about coaches as role models this morning, and we're going to go to the phones here in a moment, and I'd like to mention a couple things before we get to the phones. First of all, I'm on Twitter now, and you can follow me on Twitter on @DRJSportsPsych, @DRJSportsPsych, and you can also check out my website, which is winnersunlimited.com, and sign up for my monthly newsletter. Winners, WINNERS, unlimited.com. Sign up for my monthly newsletter. And I also want to mention my sponsor, bestfiletmignon.com. If you like to eat steaks, this is the company you got to get a hold of, bestfiletmignon.com. Their number is 800-497-7832. 800-497-7832. They are incredible steaks, the best you've ever tasted. USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. You get to choose. They're Angus cattle. They're raised on family farms. Never, ever given hormones or antibiotics. They're fresh and never frozen. You get them overnighted, FedEx to you. They're not frozen ever. And they're absolutely delicious. So 800-497-7832, bestfiletmignon.com, and use the coupon code Jacobs if you want to order something. Let them know you heard about it from me. I promise you will enjoy it. My producers have both had steaks. They loved them, and I loved them too. So let's go back to the phones. We've had Brian waiting patiently over the commercial break. Brian, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Great. Get your comments this morning, sir. Thanks for calling in.
Well, I have an issue with athletes and coaches who say, hey, my personal life is my personal life. When you step on the stage as an athlete or a coach, you are a role model whether you want to be or not. I coached Little League football for 10 years. I've been retired for 2. And, you know, I did some things as a coach that were for the team's benefit, and one of them happened to be my son didn't make it as the starting running back. He got beat out, and all the other coaches in the league are, why isn't your son in the backfield anymore? Said he's second string. He got beat out by his best friend. But you're the head coach.
How old was your son at the time, Brian?
We were in 5th grade, 6th grade, so 12, between 10 and 12.
Okay. And how did your son deal with that?
We had to sit down. I had to be dad after that happened. I wasn't coach anymore. And he dealt with it all right. He understood that it was I explained to him, I said, son, when I'm the coach, I'm not your dad. When I'm on that field, I'm the coach for the entire team. And Ben beat you out. And you know, it was one of the hardest things I ever did.
Well, see, I think, Brian, what you did there was you communicated with him, and you were honest with him, and you're straightforward with him about it. And I think that's the key thing, because I think I've worked with so many coaches in my 33rd year doing this. I've worked with professional coaches, Olympic coaches, college coaches, high school coaches, all the way down to youth sport levels like you're coaching. And, you know, it's very, very difficult to coach your kids. It's very, very difficult to coach your own son or daughter. And being honest and straightforward with them is the most important thing, and sitting down and talking with them, because I can't tell you how many coaches I've worked with and talked to over the years who they're not straight with their kids. They play their kids because they're playing favorites, and then what happens, it causes all kinds of other problems. So for you to do that took a lot of guts to do it, but what was the end result? What's your relationship like with your son now?
Well, he is now a freshman in college, and he is doing fantastic. It's a normal 19-year-old and father-son relationship, but he comes to me for the things he needs to come to his dad for. You know, the tough things, the sex questions and things of that nature, and I, you know, with life questions. We don't sit down like we're best friends, but he knows I'm going to guide him in the right way, I think.
Well, let me ask you one question before I let you go, Brian. The situation with Bobby Petrino, now being named the head coach at the University of Louisville as their football coach. If your son was being recruited to play football, and then you found out he'd been named the head coach there, how would you feel about going there?
Wouldn't go. Would not recommend. It would still be my son's choice, but I would sit down with him and explain this is not a good. He's not a good person. He may know, like you said earlier, he knows the X's and O's, but he doesn't know life. And part of being a coach is guiding the youth and guiding the young men through life on right decisions.
Well, he knows life, but from a different perspective, and that's the perspective you wouldn't want your kids to learn. Listen, Brian, thank you for your call. I appreciate it, sir, and you have a great day.
Thanks, Doctor.
Okay, that frees up our lines here, and I'd like to hear from you. If you're a coach, are you a role model? Should you be a role model? And if you are, how should you conduct yourself away from the field as well as on the field? Do you do things away from your sports life that you shouldn't be doing? And how do you handle that when it gets discovered? Our phone number is 913-381-0810. If you are an athlete, if you've played sports, what kind of a role did your coach play for you? Who do you remember? You know, if you're Brian's age or my age, I'm 59 years old. Do you remember your teachers or do you remember your coaches? Who had a bigger impact on your life? A lot of people are going to say they remember their coach more than their teachers. They can't remember their teachers' names, but they can certainly remember their coach yelling at them. Our phone number is 913-381-0810. If you are a coach, I'd like to hear from you. Do you see yourself as a role model? And is that what you should be doing if you're doing things in your personal life that aren't really too cool? Are you doing things that, people would consider, that's not something you should be doing if you're going to coach my kid? And if you're a parent and your son or daughter is thinking about going to college to play sports, how important is the coach who's recruiting them, the head coach of that team, the coaching staff on that team, for you as a parent when you're looking at your kids going to a college? How important of a role do they play? Our phone number here is 913-381-0810. Let's get some calls in here to see what you have to say. If you are an athlete, if you've played sports, what role do coaches play for you? Are they guides? Are they mentors? Are they directors? Do you look up to them, or do you look to them as just somebody who's telling you what to do? How much of a role do they play for you as an athlete? And how much of a role does their personal life play? Let's face it, I've worked with so many college teams. And last night I had the privilege of going up to KU to watch the KU women and Texas Tech women play. I spent several years working with Texas Tech's women's coach, Candy Whitaker, who's now, as I said, their head women's coach. She was at UMKC for several years. Spent several years working with Candy. Watched the game with her husband, Matt, their 3-month-old son. They've got 2 little boys now. And Candy Whitaker is a tremendous role model. I've gotten to know her. She has tremendous passion, but she spends a tremendous amount of time with these young women, helping them deal with things. And when she used me at UMKC, we spent a lot of time helping these young ladies understand their lives and understand dealing with things. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with several great coaches who I consider to be wonderful role models. And one of the things that they've all had in common is that they expressed things about themselves to the athletes. They share their lives with their athletes. They let the athletes understand them as people. And I think that's one of the key things as being a good leader, is you let your athletes know you are a human being. You've got feelings, you've got emotions, you've got thoughts, and all these things play a role to let them know, hey, I have feelings too. But I'd like to hear from you. Once again, if you're a parent, we've heard from Brian, I want to hear from you if you're a parent. What kind of a role should a coach play in your kid's life? Should they be a role model that your kids look up to or learn from, positively or negatively? Once again, our number here is 913-381-0810.
Jim's in.
381-0810. Jim, you have some comments for us.
Yeah, you were talking about Mangino earlier, and if he would have been winning, the university probably would have overlooked some of that stuff. And that's the other side of it, is the universities need to be more responsible as well.
Well, he was winning, and then things sort of fell apart. But I think the problem with Mark Mangino was there were a number of athletes who came forward and said that he was physically abusive with them as well as verbally abusive. And so the key thing that comes from that, I think, is the issue of ego. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, coaches have big egos, but a lot of them have their egos in check. When I've spent time with teams, we talk about this. Check your ego at the door. It's not about you; it's about the team. And that's where you always hear, we hear all this stuff about there's no I in team, okay, and it's about we. And when I listen to a lot of coaches talk and give their pregame talks or their motivational talks, the successful coaches are the ones that I've noticed always talk about the team concept. And they don't talk about themselves. I've been around a number of coaches over the years who talk solely about themselves and use the word I. And they talk about I. And what I find is that tunes out the athlete. They're not interested in hearing what that person has to say solely about themselves. They want to hear about the team. And that's where, to me, a successful coach is going to talk about we. We're a family, we're a group, we work together. When you listen to these teams, we're in the midst of the NFL playoffs now. And the teams that are going to come out on the Super Bowl, whoever that's going to be, you're going to hear them talk about we. You're going to talk about the team concept, and you're going to hear references to the coaches, the head coaches, the position coaches, as guides, helping them through a lot of tough times. And that's where I think you're going to see that. This past week, like I said, the University of Iowa's basketball coach, Fran McCaffrey's been there a long time. He got a double technical against Wisconsin, I believe it was last Sunday, kicked out of the game, obviously. Suspended for a game, didn't coach against Northwestern later in the week, earlier this past week, fined $10,000. The school's fined $10,000 for his behavior. He didn't really apologize when I listened to his comments. He said, I did some stuff I shouldn't have done, let's move on. I think he did, but he didn't really, I screwed up. And so I think one of the key things I think for a key role model, for a coach who's a really good role model, is when they make a mistake, they'll sit and talk about it. and they're going to admit it, and they're going to discuss that. And I think that's where a successful role model comes in.
Do you believe that it was a passion? I mean, coaches get very passionate about their team, their players, and there are passionate explosions, I believe. Do you think that situation could have been that, and he just went too far?
Well, he had two technicals in the game. The first one he said was from passion, where he was trying to motivate his team. The second one, from watching the video, he went over the edge. He lost control. You don't run out on a court and throw off your jacket and bump an official. Passion went a little bit too far.
Right, exactly.
And so that's where I think, I think you have to keep your ego in check. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, let's face it. It's your job, it's your future, it's your life. But you've got to balance all these things out. And that's where, to me, I talk about all the time when I work with athletes. 4 keys: preparation, focus, attitude, and confidence. Preparation, how you get ready. Are you prepared to do well? Are you prepared what happens when you're behind, when the score's even, when you're ahead? Where's your focus? What are you concentrating on? What kind of an attitude do you have? Is it positive, negative, or realistic? And most importantly, where's your self-confidence? What kind of confidence level do you have when you play? And when your confidence is not good, when things are going poorly, how are you going to pull it back? I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. This is the Sports Psychology Hour here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. And we're talking this morning about the topic of coaches being role models. And I'd like to hear from you at 913-3810-810. 913-3810-810. If you are a coach, do you consider yourself a role model for the athletes you're guiding? Do you think you should be seen as one? If you are a parent, how do you view the individuals who are coaching your kids? Do you see them as a role model? Is that how they should be perceived? If you are an athlete, what kind of lessons have you learned from your coaches, positively or negatively? We've got a wide open phone board. Phone lines are open. Let's get some calls in here. Our phone number is 913-3810-810. 913-3810-810. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and we are on the Leader in Sports. Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It's fitting for
Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak. It's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher. It's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result? The most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up and, well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, for the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV and PVSKC.com. PVSKC.com.
When you're thinking about New Orleans, why not let jazz cook for you?
Laissez bon temps rouler. Hey folks, Papa Vic here to talk about what's new at your favorite restaurant, Jazz, a Louisiana Kitchen. The economy got you down? You don't need a fat wallet to come to Jazz, I guarantee. Don't forget, All-American Tuesdays, where the best dish in KC is half price. Looking for live entertainment? Nobody in town plays more live music than Jazz. Check out our website, jazzkitchen.com, for daily band listings. Both locations, the original on 39th and State Line, and at the Legends in Village West. Jazz, where there's always a party every night.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are, but we do know how to have a good time talking sports. And having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
Little Bob Marley music. That sounds pretty good on a winter day in Kansas City. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Welcome to our show here in Sports Radio 810 WHB. This is the Sports Psychology Hour, and I'm here every Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m. taking your calls and talking with you about the mental side of sports. And we're talking about role models today. We're talking about coaches as role models. And I want to get some calls in here and get some comments from you. If you are an athlete, if you're a coach, if you're a parent, should coaches be role models? We're talking about this in light of Louisville hiring Bobby Petrino, or I should say rehiring Bobby Petrino as their head football coach, who was fired at Arkansas a couple years ago for lying, having an affair with a grad student, riding a motorcycle, getting in a wreck with her. And it's interesting. I've been looking on the internet during the commercial break, and the Louisville athletic director is going to get a lot of heat from this at the NCAA athletic directors meetings coming up, because it says here, you read that right, folks. Jurek, that's the athletic director, wants to do things the right way, or at least he did 5 years ago. Today's hiring back the same guy whose recruits caused those disciplinary issues then, and who in the interim hired his mistress to work in the Arkansas football office, got in a motorcycle accident with her, then lied to his employer about the situation. That guy to do the things the right way. The athletic director said, we had to clear out a lot of discipline issues here before, and our numbers suffered. We cleared 21 kids out of here, and that's a lot. That's a big hit for anybody to take. I don't know anyone that has, but we want to do things the right way. So our topic this morning is coaches as role models. Should they be role models? And I'd like to hear from you. If you're a parent, if you're a coach or an athlete, should your son or daughter's coach be a role model? Our phone number is 913-381-0810. And I got a tweet here during the commercial break. Dr. J, the best coach that I ever had, taught me as much about life as he did about high school basketball, and I still call him a friend today. Well, there you go. I don't think it could be said any better than that. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. My sponsor is bestfiletmignon.com. If you're into steaks, you like to grill steaks, check out bestfiletmignon.com. Best steaks I guarantee you'll ever have. Their number is 800-497-7832. You'll get these steaks overnight, FedEx to you. They're never frozen. You can either get USDA Prime Selector Choice. They're Angus cattle, never have hormones or antibiotics. Once again, never frozen. They're overnighted, and I guarantee you'll love them. Bestfiletmignon.com. Type in the coupon code Jacobs, or give them that code when you call up 800-497-7832. So, should a coach be a role model? In my feeling as a sports psychologist, they are role models, whether they want to be or not. Our first caller, Brian, mentioned that because they are guiding, they're directing, they're teaching. And their behavior is going to be a reflection of who they are, and that's going to teach your kids things. So if my sons were going to play college football and were being recruited at Arkansas by Bobby Petrino, when I find out Bobby Petrino is now the head coach, that school's off the list. I would not want them being coached by a guy who has a history of lying. But let's see what the callers say. Let's go first to Dave. Dave, good morning, sir. How are you?
Yeah, Doctor, how you doing?
Great. Get your thoughts.
Yeah, on Petrino, I just, if my son was in the situation to go there, I would definitely encourage him not to go there. It's not like the man had a one-time thing and he made a mistake. This is a continued pattern of lying that he's done throughout his career, and trying to get other jobs when he had a job, the things he did with how he left the Falcons. It's just that's not somebody I want my son to be taught by.
Well, this guy's got a history of this. It's not just Absolutely. He did it one time, and that's why it makes me wonder what the Louisville athletic director's thinking.
I understand, and while he was at Louisville, he tried to get other jobs, behind their backs. So.
Right.
But as far as role model, I used to coach, and now I'm an administrator. I think we're all role models. I tell my staff, from the grounds crew guys to the officials, that we're all role models for other people the kids in our organization, and we had to conduct ourselves in that way because especially when you're dealing with young kids, they're looking up to you, they're looking for direction, and the thing about sports is, everybody looks at the big picture for the the NCAA basketball, the football, they're looking at the pro thing. 99 and 9/10% of the kids playing youth sports, they're not going to be pros, but they are going to be in our lives, and you need to. We look at mentoring them and see what we can do to improve their lives and what they do to improve ours. And it's a continual process.
Have you ever had to deal with anybody, Dave, as an administrator who was not doing things the right way?
Oh yeah. And basically it's communication. You sit down and you say, hey, there's guidelines we have here, and you're not following them, and we're going to have to take some action. And sometimes obviously the most you try to get to it before it gets to be a problem, but we've had coaches before that we've had to suspend, and so you're no longer coaching here because of your conduct and your behavior. So yeah.
And when you've had to suspend somebody, how did they deal with that?
Most of the people that we've had to suspend, really, I think looking back on it, they kind of know they crossed the line, and they handle it pretty well. We've had a few cases where people have, for the most part, where it gets to be that, and we have a pattern of, checks and balances. It's usually not, the first time somebody's, crossed the line. Usually, this is a situation where we've had to suspend somebody where they've had multiple, minor offenses, and it's built up. But we've been fortunate for the most part. People understand when it got to that point that they've crossed the line that they couldn't cross, and they've dealt with the punishment. So.
Well, Dave, thanks for your call this morning. I appreciate it, and good luck working in your job. I appreciate it as an administrator. Appreciate your call. Doctor. All right, let's go next to Carl. Carl, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. My story starts out with my dad passed away when I was 11 years old. And I played soccer at the time, and I had a very good soccer coach. Eventually, he was my scoutmaster. Absolutely, he was a role model for me. He was a male role model that taught me how to act, how to interact with other people. I mean, it was a very important thing in my life, I believe, helping me grow up at that point, especially after losing my father, So I think absolutely coaches are role models, and they are on display for everybody all the time, whether it's your actions on the field, off the field, in your community, no matter where it's at.
Are you still in touch with this man?
He passed away recently.
Okay. Had you been in touch with him, though?
Not that much, because he had moved several times out of town. His jobs had taken him elsewhere. But
what's the biggest thing you can recall, Carl, learning from him?
Well, I just remember learning about the way to interact with other people, and about how to carry yourself, how to work with other people too, is part of being the team or part of being a group, or how to lead other people in things too.
So this guy had a big impact on you, and to this day, it's something you recall very vividly.
Absolutely.
Well, Carl, thanks for your call. I appreciate it, sir, and you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, let's go next to Bill. Bill, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Fine. I just wanted to briefly make a few comments about this Iowa situation that you talked about.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, I've listened to the Iowa call-in show on WHO radio every once in a while, and this McCaffrey guy seems like a really level-headed and patient guy. And
well, he's been coaching for 17 years there, so obviously he's been doing a lot of things correctly.
No, he hasn't been at Iowa for 17 years. Because he replaced Steve Alford. And,
well, that's correct. Then what I read was quoted wrong, but it said he's been coaching there for 17 years. Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to point out one thing. At Iowa, there's no margin of error. They're the smallest school in the Big Ten, and they're in a tough league. And so he's under a lot of pressure. It's hard to understand if you haven't been up in Iowa and read about it and everything. But I just wanted to say that when he interacted with this official, was he trying to intimidate the official, or did he have a legitimate gripe? And if he had a legitimate gripe, he was showing his players an unfortunate fact in life, and that is that you can't let people walk on you. So,
well, but okay, I saw the video of this, and there was one technical where he claimed it was a passionate technical. He was trying to get his players riled up. The second, when he got ejected, his sport coat was off. He stormed the floor. He bumped an official. That's going over the edge.
Yeah, he went too far, but...
Well, but what's that saying then, Bill? I mean, when you do that, what is that saying? You've lost control of yourself. Okay? Sure. And as a leader, I mean, you're sitting there talking about a guy who's coaching a Big Ten school. I don't care if it's a Big Ten school or what conference it's in. You're still guiding these kids.
Right.
And so every coach is under pressure. I've worked with coaches at all levels. They're all under pressure, especially at the college level. Winning is important. But I think his job, yeah, they need to win, but they're a ranked team. They're a nationally ranked team, so they're obviously playing well. And it was a close situation, close game with Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a top 5 school, top 5 ranked team. But still, it wouldn't matter if who they're playing. He still needs to be in control of himself. And see, when he displayed that behavior, what's that saying to the players on his team?
Well, I understand that, but if...
Well, no. What's that saying to the players on his team, though?
You mean when he loses control?
Right, Bill. I mean, if the coach loses control, well, hell, I can lose control too. Right? If you're a player, I mean, isn't that saying that to you?
Yeah, but it also shows that he's a human being. I mean, he made a mistake, I mean... Well,
that's correct. If he admitted it and he dealt with his team, which it sounds like he did, okay. I mean, coaches are human beings. They're going to make mistakes. But they've got... See, I think you hit a good point here. They're under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure when you're at a big-time school to win, okay? But winning is a result of a lot of other things, and a lot of it has to do with self-control. And if you can't handle pressure as a head coach, then what kind of a guide are you going to be for the kids in your team? I mean, you answer that question for me.
Well, I mean, is he that way all the time, though? And I'm just saying that my impression is he isn't.
Well, I don't think he is either. But nonetheless, you're right. He is human. And I started the show off saying coaches are human beings. They're going to make mistakes, and he made a big mistake here. But the fact is, you can't do stuff like that if you want to make it to the top and be the very best. You've got to be under control. You don't see a lot of successful. Maybe behind the scenes they'll lose control, but they've got, they're looked upon by a lot of people. And the problem is now with social media, TV, the internet, radio, and everything, when you make a mistake, everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
And it's accentuated, it's exaggerated, and everybody knows about it. The key thing is when you make a mistake, how do you come back from it?
Yeah, but do you agree that you can't let people walk on you in life?
Oh, of course. You've got to stand up for yourself. But there's an appropriate way of doing it and an appropriate way not of doing it. And let me ask you this question. Are you going to change an official when they make a call? No. You may impact them. You can talk to them. But that official is rarely going to change a call. And a coach blowing up, running on the court, taking his sport coat off, and bumping an official, that is you can't do that.
Yeah, that's inappropriate. I agree.
And that's what he did.
Yeah, he went too far. But I'm just saying that in some ways, though, he may have actually instructed his players. And the unfortunate fact is you can't let people walk on you. And if this official was making bad calls, at least he, stood up for his players.
Well, officials are going to make good calls, they're going to make bad calls, and I think as a coach, you've got to deal with that both ways. But doing what he did in my opinion, was unacceptable and went too far. Obviously, there was a $10,000 fine. He got suspended for a game. And Iowa's athletic director talked about the importance of sportsmanship, which I think was the correct thing to do.
Yeah. I
So you know, I think they handled it the right way, and hopefully he won't do this again. Like I said, he's coached for 17 years, obviously not all at Iowa, but he's been coaching for a long time. He knows what he's doing. He wouldn't have lasted that long.
Right.
And hopefully this won't happen again. And it can be one of those teachable moments.
Right. Okay.
So hopefully that's what it'll be. Bill, thanks for your call.
Thank
Good
you.
questions. All right, I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. This is the Sports Psychology Hour, and we talk about the psychological side of sports on this show. And if you have a topic, a question, an issue you'd like for me to bring up, I'd like you to get a hold of me. You can reach me at my office, which is 816-561-5556. My office is on the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City. My website is winnersunlimited.com, WINNERS, unlimited.com. You can send me an email through my website, sign up for my monthly newsletter. You can also reach me on Twitter. You can connect with me on Twitter at DRJ Sport Psych, DRJ SPORT PSYCH. And I want to throw a shout out to our 9 o'clock show this morning with TJ Carpenter and Jed Marshall. They'll be talking about the Missouri situation, Missouri athletics, and the wide receiver who has now been arrested, as well as the NFL playoffs with Jason Cole. They'll be talking to Gabe DeArmond with Mizzou Athletics. So listen to Jed and TJ at 9 o'clock this morning here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. And, you know, you can listen to my show. If you're interested, you want someone else to listen to, you think it might help some people out, you can go to the podcast, which is on 810 WHB, or you can go to 810WHBTV.com. My shows are all on there on TV, and you can watch me on 810WHBTV.com. Just find Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and you'll be able to see my shows. There are several shows on there now.
90 seconds.
This show is about you, our listeners. It's about the calls we take. So I love doing the show with you every week, and I'd like to hear from you. If you have comments, like I said, have questions about topics you'd like me to bring up, let me hear from you. Once again, my office number is 816-561-5556. My Twitter address is at DRJ Sports Psych. My email is drj@winnersunlimited.com. And once again, check out my sponsor, bestfiletmignon.com. If you like steaks, you need to at least go online and check out their website, bestfiletmignon.com. If you want to order some steaks, call 800-497-7832. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Have a great week, Kansas City, and I'll talk to you next Sunday here on the Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak. It's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher. It's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result, the most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up and, well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, for the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs.